I know. Y'all want me to give the kumbaya, let's hold hands and skip off into the sunset reality of this. But I do think, and again, I'm going to say this now, you should not be experiencing frequent jealousy or envy of your friends. You should not be experiencing frequent jealousy or envy, period. And if you are to a point in your life where you're experiencing these emotions frequently, and these are not passing emotions that you are processing, then you are in the fucking wrong. Okay. And I know right and wrong, that's complex. I'm not going to say that. Okay. I'm not going to say you're in the wrong, but you definitely need to be more accountable for processing and learning how to process your feelings. Hello, y'all. My goodness. Welcome back to another week of the Freedom Collective podcast. I thank you all again for being a part of this collective. Honestly, like, please, y'all, I'm so just blown away. The podcast, again, is doing well. It's growing. I'm excited about it. I'm happy. Please continue to leave reviews if you can. Make it a 5-star. If it's less than 5 stars, write it down. Like I said, right? I want you to fold that thing like it's origami, tuck it under your pillow, and dream of a more positive review so you can go leave that instead. But in all seriousness, like, thank you for coming back week after week, y'all. I'm really appreciative of all the support. I see your comments. I just like am so appreciative and happy. And I am excited for today's topic. So I'm gonna let y'all know now, right? I have a problem, right? Where when something is happening and there's a discourse tornado that happens on the internet, you know you're gonna find me somewhere involved in the mess on the in the webs. But I like to go back and I like to do what a lot of people don't, and that's read. We're gonna get into that when we get to the journey, which is segment 2. Let's do intake first because I'm about to jump into the tea ahead of time. So today's intake question is, what is your favorite astrology placement? If you can interact in the comment section, if you're listening to the podcast, go leave a comment on the YouTube, go leave a comment in one of our videos in one of our socials. Ours, as in, because it's our collective. But yeah, I want to hear from you too. But I want to know, what's your favorite astrology placement? I'll say my favorite astrology placement is hard because it comes down to two. And a lot of people like call me chaotic and a demon for these placements, but I genuinely enjoy like these placements. I'm a Pisces moon, as many of you know, but also I'm a Sag rising. So I would say like the way Jupiter like touches my chart, it is like my fave. I have to say it's one of my faves. And it's literally, I love having so many Jupiter placements too, primarily because it makes me so hopeful sometimes. Even when things are really, really, really rough or things are going on, like you live in a country that is senselessly targeting other countries and supporting and uplifting uh, not so real countries who are carpet bombing other places. Even when life seems like a little bleak, oil is going up because we're in a war that makes no sense, that they aren't really trying to call a war. You know, even when it comes to all of that, I can still find a piece of hope somewhere in here. Like, oh, I believe in the power of humanity. I really do credit like my Sag rising and Pisces moon for that. I'm just like, I have hope. I don't know. Maybe I'm an optimist. But yeah, I think I credit those for being so hopeful. But also my Pisces moon, I credit it for like being able to do what I do. Like I feel like I like to believe I'm a deeply empathetic person, and that helps me to engage with other people from different walks of life easily. Easily? Is it easily? Yeah. So yeah, that's my favorite. Those are my favorite placement. I want to know, like, let me know in the comments or something. What's yours? Leave a review that's 5 stars, and I might let me stop. If you leave a review that's 5 stars, I might interact with it. Kidding, but yeah, I do want to hear from y'all. So let me know. But yeah, like I was saying at the top, we're gonna talk about jealousy and envy, okay, and friendships, and just in general. I know. A lot of y'all probably are like, but we already did this. We talked about it for a week straight. Well, that's too damn bad. because we gonna talk about it again. Kidding. But yeah, I did more research around it. Naturally, I am a therapist, so it is of my practice to delve into the research behind it. Like I'm reading journals. I actually got this cool book that I'm really happy I got as a result of this jealousy conversation. I just wanted to delve a little bit more into developmental emotional psychology, like the whole name. Yeah, so today we're going to be covering or touching back on jealousy in your relationships, envy in your relationships, the difference between jealousy and envy, because there is a difference. We do use it interchangeably a whole lot, but I think that is where a lot of people are getting confused. But just to set the scene a little bit, because I'm gonna keep it about keep it a beam. This conversation is happening as a direct result of some girl who got on TikTok not too long ago, and she was honest enough to say, yeah, like I was the jealous friend. My friend had a lot of things handed to her. She was living the life that I wanted. She had the job I wanted. She was living in the city I wanted. She had the car, that she had all of the things that she wanted. And she felt like she had it easier in life and had things handed to her. And more on that later. But yeah, a lot of people had a lot of opinions. I had opinions. My initial thought was a lot of y'all are hating ass bitches because y'all don't know how to regulate and process your emotions. Do I still feel that way after reading all of the research that I have? Yes. Actually, I feel it even more. These are things that I already knew, but now I can like come back and be like, y'all, not only was I right, but I was triple right. I do think there's some confusion that happened all up in this conversation, notably being some people saying they never experienced jealousy. I don't necessarily think that's impossible, but the amount of people who are saying it, that doesn't feel right. But yeah, believe it or not, there are people who I believe are very, very rarely ever experience any sort of jealousy or envy. But I think some people aren't aware of what the feeling is because it is a secondary emotion. It's typically colored in by other emotions, but we're gonna get into all of it. We're gonna get into all of it. We're gonna get into all of it. I promise. But yeah, this girl came online. She said that she was a jealous friend. Her and that friend wind up not being friends anymore for a separate reason, according to her. If you ask me, it is very rare that those things don't bleed out. She thinks the girl believes that the friend had no idea that she was jealous the way she was talking, it's hard for me through my experience throughout life to believe that to be true. However, comma, she says that the girl and her fell out for a separate reason, and she's glad they're not friends anymore because she was jealous and she owned that. So I will say, seeing a lot of people rushing to be like, "You're so brave," for coming forward with these emotions. I'm gonna just keep. I'm gonna let y'all know what I think. Like out the gate, right? It bothers me that people are so quick to rush to a person's side when they are experiencing something that could potentially be harmful to another person. Okay. And there's very little empathy expressed for the person who would likely be on the receiving end of that. My empathy goes to the friend who unfortunately was in a friendship where the person could not be happy for her because she had things that the other person wanted. And I don't know that girl. We never got that girl side of the story. Frankly, she probably somewhere living her life, her best and biggest one. So she probably ain't going to give us her side of the story. But it is, again, through my experience, and this is me talking purely off of like the work that I do, purely off of my own personal experience. In my experience, it is very rare that somebody who speaks in the manner in which that girl did, that they do not express that jealousy in other ways. Okay. So I understand people calling her brave because it is hard to discuss these difficult emotions because there are emotions, and we'll talk about it, but like there are emotions that a lot of people just try so hard to zhuzh up and throw glitter on and toss it around and deep fried and sprinkles. But I'm not that type of clinician. I'm just not that type of person. There are emotions that fucking suck. There are feelings that are hard to feel. And that's okay. Like I think it's better for all of us if we can own that and like acknowledge that there are difficult emotions to process and feel. That's okay. And jealousy and envy, because they are different, they are difficult emotions to feel. But like all emotions, they serve functions, not necessarily 100% biological, but they do serve purpose and function. And I do think they come from, speaking from an evolutionary psychology perspective, they come from the place of motivating people to do things that are beneficial for the people. But let's just get straight into it, y'all. I do want to set some terms for this conversation because we have conversations like this, but we are not all having the same conversation because we're all using different language. It is important for me for y'all to know the language that I'm using so you can understand what the fuck I'm talking about. Excuse my language. I'm sorry. So, I want to talk about internalizing versus externalizing emotions. Like I said, it is very rare to me that someone who speaks in the manner in which that girl did, like that, those type of people would not be externalizers. And when I say externalizers, these are people who project their feelings outward because it makes it easier to cope. Hear me, right? Internalizing behaviors are inward focused, often invisible emotional struggles like anxiety, depression, and withdrawal, whereas externalizing behaviors and feelings are outward focused, disruptive actions such as aggression, defiance, and impulsivity. Internalizing causes emotional pain within the self, while externalizing causes conflicts with the environment and people in it. Okay? That's going to be really important. All right. When you're internalizing, you are taking emotions such as jealousy and envy and you're putting it on you. You're dealing with that internally versus externalizing, where you're reassessing and assessing things, measuring yourself up against the things in your environment. Like this could be things like aggression, bullying, impulsivity, disobedience, destruction of property, substance use, projecting, blaming, literally everything on the outside. You're focused on everything outside of yourself. Whereas with internalizing, this could look like anxiety, depression, social withdrawal, feelings of worthlessness, things like that. This is not to say that people can't do a mix of both. It is very likely that all of us, any of us, are going to do a mix of both of these. But again, some of the language that was used and that has been coming up in circulation around the initial thing that sparked this conversation that triggered me or like alerted me that this may be more of an externalizing situation is the way in which she assessed her friend's accomplishments and the things that she received. Saying things like she had things handed to her, or like that she believed, okay, that this friend had things handed to her, means that she's assessing the other person's things. She's not saying, I'm not good enough. She's saying that person has it easy because they don't have to work for it. You can say that that's not the same thing. I'm going to say I have a beach house that I can sell you in Idaho because those are very much the same thing. And that behavior, right? That language, I should say, that language is in alignment with externalizing. And people who externalize, okay, this is not to say that this girl is some awful person, some criminal mastermind. She was going to kill her friend because there were people saying stuff like that. I think that's like so ridiculous. Like, we don't know enough information about the girl to know how far it would go with her, but I know enough to know like that type of language is indicative of somebody who is more likely to externalize, right? To blame the friend, to change the way they behave with that friend versus other people, to withdraw from sharing or showing affection, withdrawing support because she doesn't think that the friend even needs it, right? Because she's externalizing and assessing that this girl does not need it, right? And I've said this so many times before in the past, being around people who do not see you as someone who is someone who is worthy of or who is in need of emotional support, nurturance, that will be one of the biggest downfalls you could ever put yourself in your life. That will be your ending. Being around people who do not see you as deserving of nurturance because they either one believe that you don't deserve it, or B, do not think that you need it. Okay. And when I say they don't think you need it, they probably think that you have things handed to you or that your life is easy because they're assessing and externalizing their own feelings about you onto you and not seeing you as a human being. Okay. And don't get me wrong, internalizing is also not healthy at the very least when it comes to feelings like jealousy, envy. Why? Because you should be able to process your feelings and not see yourself as part of those feelings. I'm going to break down like emotional processing later on in this segment. People who do not know how to regulate their emotions are pretty typically going to have a really hard time processing through feelings like envy and jealousy. And those people can be very fucking annoying to be around. I know, and I know. Y'all want me to give the kumbaya, let's hold hands and skip off into the sunset reality of this. But I do think, and again, I'm going to say this now, you should not be experiencing frequent jealousy or envy of your friends. You should not be experiencing frequent jealousy or envy, period. And if you are to a point in your life where you're experiencing these emotions frequently, and these are not passing emotions that you are processing, then you are in the fucking wrong. Okay. And I know right and wrong, that's complex. I'm not going to say that. Okay. I'm not going to say you're in the wrong, but you definitely need to be more accountable for processing and learning how to process your feelings. That is on you. That is not on anybody else around you. This we're talking about interpersonal relationships, but we're going to get into that too. Like that is on you. You have to work through that. You should not be jealous and envious of your friends. Period. Okay? Period. But yeah, let's define jealousy and envy. Envy is the desire for something someone else has, and that is a two-party interaction, while jealousy is the fear of losing something you already possess to a third party. Envy focuses on longing for possessions or traits, whereas jealousy is rooted in suspicion, insecurity, and protecting existing relationships. So let me explain and break it down further so it can forever be broke, right? Envy is wanting, jealousy is fear of loss. So envy is feeling disconnected and longing for another's advantages, possessions, or status. Like I wish I had her job, for example. And jealousy is like feeling threatened, possessive, or suspicious that a rival might take away a relationship or valuable possession, such as I'm worried that my partner is flirting with somebody else, right? Jealousy has, and I'm going to be quoting this journal, okay? I read. I'm going to be quoting this a lot, but it specifically, one of the articles that I really leaned into when I was doing my research is the evolutionary psychology of envy and jealousy. Okay. And y'all let me know if y'all want me to post this article somewhere in my link tree or something. But jealousy has a possessive component. Like I want to actually deprive the other person's resource and claim it as my own. That is jealousy. Jealousy is more like possessive. Like I'm gonna take that or I'm going to sabotage that. That is jealousy. Envy is not quite as negative. It doesn't have the same sharp edge and it motivates emulation to gain independent access to similar or even better resources. So all of it comes down to like other people's resources. But with jealousy, it is more possessive, it is more negative, it is willingness to sabotage, it is willingness to take. Whereas envy, it is desiring what someone has, and that doesn't have to be a negative thing. It could also be used to motivate people. I really like this article because it asks really nice questions. And one of these questions, I want y'all to answer this question with me, right? It talks about the beggar, and like there's another beggar who is in the same situation, but they are making slightly more money than you, like 50% more money than you. Is the beggar more likely to be jealous of the beggar who is making slightly more money in the same situation or of Jeff Bezos, for example? No, the beggar is more likely to be like jealous of someone in the same predicament doing slightly better than someone who is, say, a mega millionaire. So the article did a really good job, if you ask me, of underscoring that it is not explicitly about resource and a lack of resource. It's not just about somebody having more because the feeling isn't geared towards the most of an outcome, right? If you are, for example, somebody's neighbor and you and your neighbor are on the same playing field in every regard, but this neighbor has access to like 50% more income than you, you're more likely to be jealous of that neighbor than you would be of a Elon Musk for having trillions of dollars or some shit like that, right? And it's because you don't seek that. You're not seeking ultimately like wealth. Wealth isn't the thing. It's about being motivated to get the resources that are within your reach. It is about noticing things that are slightly that you can slightly adjust to get to a higher place of competition. It is so you can secure resources within your local area, basically. I think that's the evolutionary part where you are hardwired to acquire resources around you, and it would make less sense to waste the energy trying to, for example, hate on Jeff Bezos because you know that in your mind you attribute that to something that is unreachable, or you attribute that to like pure luck, things like that. Your mind is not wrapped around I'm so jealous of that man because he is not in your local area. This article talks a lot about why local proximity matters, right? If your neighbor has a hot wife that you think you could be attracted to you, you're more likely to be jealous of your neighbor than like a movie star who has a hot wife who you think might be attracted to you. That proximity matters. There are so many things that I think this article does a beautiful job at touching on, but jealousy is not just about what somebody has that you don't. And I should stop saying jealousy because I'm really referring to envy. A lot of people don't mean jealous when they say jealous. A lot of people mean envy. But in our context, the United States specifically, like jealousy and envy are both interchangeable, which is a cultural thing. Stop, please. Oh my God, stop telling people you don't know the difference between jealousy and envy. People likely do. I won't say everybody does, but a lot of people do. And it's just that these words culturally are interchangeable. Okay. Say it with me, y'all. Interchangeable. Let people rock. You do not have to be the thousandth person to say, well, there's a difference between jealousy and envy. We know. Just culturally, we exchange those words. Even this paper that I'm referring to here, the evolutionary psychology of jealousy and envy, they touch on the reality that those words are interchangeable in the context of the United States, but they aren't actually interchangeable. But yeah, jealousy, I should say, is very complex. And I think it's important to acknowledge like it's not as simple as what the person has so much as it is about trying to acquire and be the best version of yourself. If you know how to regulate your emotions, if you know how to actually introspect and ask yourself, what is it that I'm jealous of? Right. But that again, it requires a certain degree of vulnerability with self, because if you're not willing to be vulnerable with yourself and to assess that, you're not going to be able to really be in tune with your emotions, process those emotions, and use it to motivate you to do something for yourself. Whereas that could lead to externalizing. But again, internalizing does not help you get closer to where you need to be either, because if you're internalizing, you are very likely putting yourself down and telling yourself you're not good enough, which also does not motivate you to get closer to the behaviors and actions and choices that could get you closer to the things that you may be envious or jealous of. It's like one of those things. It's all going to come back down to like owning your feelings and emotional regulation, but we will get into that later because I'm not just going to talk about why you should not be just jealous of your friends. I'm going to talk about what you can do, which is like learn how to regulate your damn emotions. Please, Lord, we are all tired. We are all tired. And a lot of people will not tell y'all this, because every time somebody tells y'all that y'all externalizing and internalizing feelings instead of processing them makes life harder for everybody else around you. It is annoying. We are tired. And look, I'm not on the clock, because every time I say it and I'm blunt about it, everybody be like, "You a therapist? You a therapist?" Yes, I know, but I'm not your therapist unless you're my client and you're listening. If that's the case, please feel free to bring this up in session. How you doing, Pookie? However, comma, if you are not, I ain't your therapist, so I can say it as plainly as I need to, and it's not because I don't it's not because I don't want people to grow, because I do. And typically, when you want that, people grow when you are softer about it. But it's because a lot of y'all are so used to and accustomed to social media coddling y'all through these very like hard truths, right? The hard truth is nobody is responsible for your feelings. You can externalize them and project them onto people all day. That doesn't make them responsible. You can internalize and shame yourself and beat yourself bloody. That does not make anybody responsible for your feelings. You have to process and own those feelings. That's the harsh truth. And, I'm not on a clock, so I can say it plainly. Okay. But I'm not going to just tell y'all that. I will give you the tools to do something about it. But again, y'all don't. I'm not gonna say y'all because if you listen to this, you very likely aren't like one of those people. But like people in general who have heavy identification with the victim complex specifically have a hard time hearing that because they are accustomed to the role of victim. No shade, but I'm gonna touch on that a little bit later too. All right, so let me also clarify that there's a difference between mild envy and jealousy versus clinical jealousy and envy, right? Yes, there is such a thing. And yes, there is a difference. Mild jealousy is generally mild envy, often benign or motivating envy, is a fleeting, non hostile feeling of desiring another person's success, which can spark personal growth. Conversely, clinical or malicious envy is a destructive, obsessive feeling accompanied by hostility, low self worth, and a desire to see another person lose their advantage. Mild envy is benign and motivating, as in it focuses on leveling up, inspiring self improvement, whereas clinical or malicious envy is focused on leveling down, wanting to destroy, steal, or harm another person's source, the source of that envy that you feel. It can, again, we talked about all of this, but the point being, um, this is jealousy and envy, but like jealousy, there's a spectrum here, is my point. There is a large spectrum, and there's a difference between mild feelings of envy and jealousy versus like more clinical, malicious feelings of envy and jealousy. People who, if you, this is my opinion, people who know how to process their emotions do not feel the extreme end of that. But people who do not know how to process those emotions or who do not learn how to process and regulate their feelings are more susceptible to feeling the extreme because they're not processing through these things that lives in your body, in your mind too. Also, like I said, I have this new book. This is the Handbook of Emotions, the fourth edition, and it is like really good. It really breaks down. It's evolutionary psychology, and it talks about a wide range of things from gender and emotion, how the stuff shows up in the brain. But I got this book and I was like reading through it, and specifically what it says about jealousy is how there is a need for cognition for that to be conscious, right? The development of the prefrontal cortex is important in this for the people who want to know how these things are happening in the brain. When you're experiencing jealousy, you are having a cognitive perception of self. In order for you to have or to be conscious of these of jealousy and these feelings, you have to have a concept of yourself versus other people and how other people are perceiving you. Okay. It is developed like earlier on in childhood. This book specifically talks about how when you are an infant, you're more like it's easier for you to share your toys, for example, but it's not until you get older, like maybe toddler, three-ish, you start to recognize like if one of your siblings is getting more affection from your mom, for example, that you are likely to retaliate and try and share your toys less. You are less likely to share or do things like that are petty or malicious because you are experiencing jealousy early on. These things typically are grown out of through cultural and social interaction and engagement. People learn to process and feel these feelings better as they grow older. That is the aim, but unfortunately a lot of people do not develop those skills. Emotional regulation is a skill. It is not something that is innate. You have to learn how to regulate and process your feelings. So typically people who don't like really learn those skills from their caregivers or from lived experience, they have a harder time navigating the intense intensity of that feeling, like I just said before. I also believe that people who are more prone to externalizing things like envy and jealousy, these people, in my opinion, are fueled by, and those negative, the intensity is reinforced by cognitive distortions. Okay. And cognitive distortions are pretty much what they sound like. They are distortions on like the way that you think and perceive the world. And when it comes to envy, specifically, the ones that I have here that I believe are connected to things like externalizing and having intense envy or intense jealousy for another person is things like black or white thinking. This is viewing life like no binary. This is like either they got everything handed to them or not, right? There's just no reality where a person has every single thing in their life handed to them. Some people get things handed to them more. Don't get me wrong, but like it is very likely that you, somebody who is apparently of lower class or social economic status, that you're going to be around somebody who has every single thing handed to them. That black and white thinking is part of what I mean. Like that all or nothing thinking could really lead to somebody viewing things in a binary, like she's losing, I'm winning, I'm losing, she's winning, that type of thing. There's also upward comparisons, like focusing primarily on people who seem to be better off, like comparing yourself like literally to everybody who you think has what you want, as opposed to like literally looking around and practicing gratitude. Because I always say, if you're not practicing gratitude, you're probably going to be miserable in life, especially if you tack onto that upward comparison. But that can lead to an idealized like perception of what people above, and I'm saying that with air quotes if you're listening, above you have, which is going to lead to further intensity of like for and craving things that other people have because you're so focused on everything but your goddamn self. Sorry, okay. Let me get it together because I really do. This is a very touchy topic, I know, but it is also very annoying because I think like once you really break from it, you really break from it. But also, when you've been on the receiving end of it and somebody has been jealous of you, you know how fucking dangerous this can be and how emotionally damaging it can be. So please take care of yourselves. Another cognitive distortion I would say is mental filtering. This is ignoring the successes that you do have while focusing on your shortcomings compared to others. This is like filtering out every single win you have because you don't like that the other girl has what you want, right? You graduated and got into a good school, but you can't focus on that because you're worried about the girl getting into the school that you say is your dream school. You have like a loving family, for example, but you can't get past the fact that you think that the other girl family I'm not just saying, let me stop saying girl because it's not just gender. You worried about the other guy, okay? Yes, because this is gender inclusive. You're worried about the other guy having a family that you love more, right? Maybe you don't have a loving family, but you have other supports around you. Maybe you have loving grandparents, but you have a horrible relationship with your parents. And you're so worried about that other person having parents that you enjoy that you can't even think about the fact that you have support. Okay? You're filtering out the things, that's that lack of ability to practice and appreciate the things you have, but you're filtering out the things that you have that are going successfully because you're so worried about the other person, what they have. Then there is catastrophizing. That is like exaggerating the consequences of what happens as a result of not having what the other person has. She's living in the town I want to live in. Like, I would be so much happier. The reason why I'm miserable is not because I'm miserable. It's because this other person has what I want. And yeah, another last one is like a perfectionism, but perfectionistic thinking is comparing yourselves to things that are unrealistic, right? If you know your friend comes from like a different level of support than you getting upset is like kind of ridiculous. I'm sorry, y'all, because y'all gonna think this is problematic. I'm sorry. I am trying to go back to school, for example. I'll tell y'all that much now. And I was having a conversation with one of my friends, and they have family that has a fund set aside that they could touch to pay for going back to school. I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. I don't feel a way about that. But my friend I'm sure was gearing up to have to defend themselves, which I don't know why, but like they explained or tried to explain away the reality that they had money. They're like, I'm sorry. It's like you don't have nothing to apologize for because like you have a different set of like circumstances, which is okay. But that's because I'm not thinking through the lens of perfectionism where it's like, or not externalizing. I should say that much. I don't feel the need to make people punish themselves because they have resources that I don't. But additionally, I'm not like sitting here thinking that my life should be just as easy, or I'm gonna have it just as easy, or I should be mad because my life isn't just as easy as someone who does come from them circumstances. It's not my fault. It's my parents. Like it's not even their fault. We just come from where we come from, and that's cool. And because I'm able to process those feelings and have been processing my emotions for many moons, it just doesn't bother me. The thought doesn't even cross my mind to compare my situation to theirs. And it's a shame that our society is set up to where a lot of people do. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, cognitive distortions, they are, if you ask me, one of the things that fuel a lot of the intensity that a lot of people experience. The girl who initially brought up being a jealous friend, I'm sure that she has a few of these distortions. And if she just took a step back and like really evaluated her own life, she would realize like just because her life isn't exactly like her friends, it doesn't mean that her friend is like having an easier life anywhere near an easier life than her, like maybe in some regards, but maybe your life is easier than your friends. Maybe you shouldn't be comparing your life to other people's and you should be solely be focusing on yours because you probably have a lot of good things going in your life. You sure looked like you were housed when I looked at you. Skin was glowing, I'll say that much. So clearly something going right. Jealousy and envy can happen both platonically and romantically. That's another thing. My friend Christina, she actually, I saw a video of hers where she was bringing up how possessiveness and jealousy, that's actually actual jealousy, like possessiveness in relationships, and how that can show up. And how it's a theme that you have to work through in your romantic relationships because Christina's poly, like she has been forced to kind of like confront that in her life, which I think is an amazing thing. Many of us need to do it. I had a mean jealous streak when it came to partners back in the day. And I mean me. But these days, like because I've again learned how to process and regulate my emotions, learn how to check in with myself, be honest with myself, like it's easier for me to process around things like jealousy. Okay. But friendship is no exception. Friendship is mija. You can also be jealous of and envious of your friends. You could be possessive of your friends, like jealous that your friend is spending time with somebody else. You could be envious, like that your friend is getting something that you think that you deserve or that you want. Like mija, the not me saying mija. It does not matter. You could experience this in any form of relationship, romantic, platonic, familial. I was actually also reading an article about the development of envy and jealousy in the sibling dynamics. There's a lot of interesting reads around envy and jealousy. If you found this topic really interesting or really triggering, because you might find something that can help it be less triggering. But more onto my opinion, right? Now that I'm sure we all have like similar language, or at least you know what the hell I'm talking about. Hopefully, that wasn't just a ramble or a rant. But the reason why it's really hard for me to jump straight to empathizing with people who are like expressive about experiencing jealousy and envy, which many people do, is that I know what it's like on the other side of someone who is externalizing or internalizing, right? Because I should emphasize that even internalizers come with their own shit. Like somebody who can't be happy for you it's not good to be around. Somebody who's like trying to punish you for having things that they want, it's not a good time. I know what it's like to be on the other end of that, and therefore my empathy goes immediately to the people who are on the receiving end of that because it can be very hard. Okay. And another reason that makes it really hard is because people who experience jealousy and envy often express it in ways that give them plausible deniability. Imagine, right? If that friend, the same friend who was on the receiving end of that girl stuff, got online and said, let me tell you something. My old friend was a hater. The girl was jealous of me down. Boots, boots. People would probably say, you're being delusional. She probably didn't even mean that. Trust me, I know. I know I have witnessed this many a time, this phenomenon many a time, and I'm sure you have as well. When people come forward and say, like, people are literally hating on me, most of the times people are like quick to try and humble the person who is saying, like, these people are hating on me, these people are jealous, and it's actually like impacting me negatively. I do not like it. I feel isolated. I feel all of these things. There's a certain plausible deniability. So my empathy immediately goes to the people who are on the receiving end of that, because she is not telling this to her friend who she's in community with. She's saying this after she stopped being friends with the girl, allegedly for something else. And I'm saying allegedly because I highly doubt that with the way that she's speaking, that she is not externalizing or at least internalizing, and that is impacting the way she showed up in that friendship. And it is impacting the way many of us show up in our friendships and relationships in real life, because we do not know how to process and regulate our emotions. Word to mommies. Mija. And this is to the people who are, this is for the people who find themselves on the receiving end of people's jealousy and envy, right? Because I'm gonna speak to you directly too, because I feel like there's this like, and I keep saying natural allegiance to losers, and I know people don't like hearing me say that, but a lot of people have more empathy for people who are doing things that could have negative impact on other people versus the people who are on the receiving end of that negative impact. That does not shock me given the society we have. I understand that this might be a little controversial. I ask that if you feel a way, please speak it, because I'm not here to say that you cannot disagree with me. You have every right to disagree with me. But I want to speak directly to the people who are on the receiving end of people's jealousy and envy. Babes, you have to discern. Like, this is why it's important to discern with who you have around you. Do not discount or distrust your intuition. Oftentimes, you can tell when somebody is having negative feelings towards you, that may be jealousy or envy. I also want to just note, like, jealousy and envy can be spiced by so many different emotions. I think I said earlier it's a secondary emotion, but like there's so many things that be going behind that. You can pick up on when a person is experiencing those things to you. Discern who you share your energy with. Go towards relationships that pour into you. Be around people who can be happy for you and clap for you, and do not make you feel like you have to shrink yourself in order to make them feel safer or comfortable. Please get around people who know how to emotionally regulate, because that is going to be very important if you are somebody who is a lightning rod for that. And I say this too because I shared my story, one of my stories on TikTok, about my ex best friend who admitted to during our friendship of being jealous of me. That man did so many things to sabotage me and like rained on my parade. I told the story, and it's on my talk of the tick. If you really want to, if you can find it, you can find it. It's on my Yap account. But I told the story about how my ex best friend, who admitted to being jealous of me, how he ruined my graduation day, tried to discourage me from going to grad school. I'm a therapist now because I went to grad school. So imagine if I had listened to him and the person he was talking about me to, about not going because he said I would be jobless and broke. Like, you have to discern. And this is something I had to learn later on in life that I hope that a lot of the people who are listening to this, who may be younger, can learn now. But you have to discern who you're around. Somebody who is making you feel like shit on during your biggest moments, those are people who don't need to be around you, period. But that's neither here nor there. Okay. But speaking now directly to the people who experience, like, at least chronically experience jealousy and envy of other people in their lives who may have things that they want, I just think owning your feelings is the cure, quotes, air quotes around cure, because nothing is wrong with you. You're not sick. You just need to learn how to regulate and process your emotions. But I think ownership of your feelings is really the main way that you're going to be able to address those things. And when I say owning those emotions, I mean, you have to take accountability for it. You cannot look externally and say, like, there, you cannot. And yes, hold on, let me be clear. There are people who benefit from systems and institutions. If you're going to be mad at those systems and institutions, be mad at those systems and institutions. I'm speaking specifically about interpersonal conflict. You cannot be looking around you and blaming every which body and everything else. You need to actually own your feelings. If you are experiencing envy or jealousy, just own those feelings, because that's the first step to being able to process them. But own it. Like, but you don't have to own it on the internet because then the debates happen clearly. And that pissed me off. But like, you can own your feelings and like learn how to process those feelings, but it's not someone else's fault that they have opportunities that you don't. Okay. You could literally, and maybe it is in some of y'all's cases, but like for the most part, you need to process like why you might feel a way that they have an opportunity that you don't. But also when it comes to internalizers, right? You can't be beating yourself up just because other people have things that you don't have. That does not help you move forward in life. A lot of people ain't going a lot of people ain't going to get any of this, and that's okay. If I'm not communicating it in a way that you can receive, I apologize, but own your feelings, y'all. That's the main takeaway. And like the best way to own like what you do after you own those feelings, like that you may need to like actually assess what it is that you want. In this article that I was reading earlier, The Evolutionary Psychology of Envy and Jealousy, it really asked like it was emphasizing that people benefit more when they ask like what am I jealous of and what am I envious of, for learning what their goals are for the future, rather than what like asking yourself what your values are. And the reason why that is because your values is what you think you should want, whereas knowing what you're jealous and envious of tells you what you actually want. And a lot of people who you might be looking at in life who maybe seem like they're moving at a quicker pace towards like their alignment with what they deem to be their purpose, is they may be actually honest with themselves about their feelings. When you're not honest about your feelings, it's much harder to move and maneuver through life, and that's just a fact. That's the fact of life. With that in and I'm gonna close this. With that in mind, I'm gonna close this segment with my favorite emotional regulatory technique, which is the RAIN technique, and that is an acronym. Okay, my clients, if they were listening to this, which you shouldn't be, you can. I'm kidding. My clients will know this one because I use it, lean on this a lot because I think it's just like sometimes the most common sense way is the best way. But the RAIN technique is like this method, and I have a full video breaking it down on my YouTube if you dig through my YouTube channel. But it is an acronym that helps to regulating emotions. And the R stands for recognizing your feelings. That is where you're going to just like, okay, you're going to sit, you're going to just literally feel what you're feeling, right? If you're feeling a tightness in your chest, if you are feeling embarrassed, if you're feeling like your mind racing, or you feel like your stomach tightening from anxiety, if you feel sweaty, if you're just recognizing the things that are happening, if you're recognizing a thought, like I keep telling myself that I'm not good enough, for example, you're recognizing it. You're not analyzing it, you're not questioning it, you're not doing anything, you're just recognizing it. That's step one. Step two is allowing it to be just as it is. And that is like you just like sitting with the feelings, like the sensations you're experiencing in your body, that you sitting with the thoughts, like sitting, allowing it to be, taking a beat. I recommend taking 4 deep breaths, holding in 4, breathing out 4, like really like taking deep breaths and sitting with that feeling. Let it subside a little bit. And then that's when you go on to step 3, which is investigating with kindness. Okay, internalizers, y'all need to hear that part specifically, with kindness. Okay, you have to ask yourself the questions, be introspection. What am I feeling right now? Oh, I think I'm jealous. What is making me jealous? What am I envious of? She got a promotion and that makes me feel like I'm not doing good enough in my own life. Oh, why do I feel that? Because I've been in the same position. Am I doing anything that's like keeping me here? Am I being kind to myself? Like, is there anything I can do better moving forward? Is it fair for me to be upset with my friend? Like, is there a way that I can like maneuver and handle? Like, these are the type of questions you can ask yourself when you're investigating with kindness. Internalizers, I'm not asking you to like beat up on yourself. Like, am I good enough? No, like that's not what I'm asking you to do. But I am asking you to like be introspective. Externalizers, y'all need that too. But like specifically the with kindness part is the operative part of that sentence. And then the last part, and this is really important for internalizers and externalizers, and it is non-identification. And that is where you understand that your feelings are experiences. They are not permanent, they are temporary. Nobody feels any emotion 24/7, 365 every single day of the week. And you need to understand like that about your emotions. Just because you feel something like envy or jealousy, it does not mean that it is a reflection of you as a person. It doesn't become that until you don't process and regulate your feelings. And literally just process your feelings. That's it. Most people experience envy and jealousy. I don't care what nobody say about that. I don't really quite care about that. I've experienced it before in my life too. But guess what? If you aren't processing and regulating your emotions, you won't understand that those are temporary feelings and they don't have to be representative or reflective of you or anybody else. Okay. All right. I'm hoping I did a good job at discussing this topic because Lord knows it was a hellscape. I should you be jealous of or envious of your friends? I'm gonna say no, you shouldn't. But you won't be like intensely jealous or envious of your friends if you regulate or process your feelings. That's it in a nutshell. Okay. Moving on to segment three, one of my favorite segments. It is Ask Dr. Durag. And we ain't got no friend today. It's just Dr. Durag today. This question comes from Rosalinda that says, could you talk on the rise in the misuse of therapy speak to justify harmful behavior and how people will sometimes use that or a diagnosis, theirs or others, to justify damaging action or rhetoric? How can we approach this if slash when we recognize it happening? Yeah, so people weaponize therapy speech a whole lot these days, and I don't think it's always intentional. I think some people genuinely like are excited about learning information, and I think that's a good thing, but there are people who approach therapy and psychology through a very Western lens about what they can gain as opposed to like how they can connect and heal. And I don't know. I think I would lean really heavily into what in what way can we connect or grow from what you just said. Yeah. And plus somebody explaining or having a mental diagnosis or issue does not necessarily justify any behaviors or outcomes as a result. You're allowed to feel what you feel. And when you practice emotional regulation, and you have solid boundaries, it's harder for people to kind of convince you out of that because they're trying to manipulate you. I think maintaining boundaries is also like one of the main parts of avoiding running into issues with this. And it's like, hey, yeah, I understand that you may have this disorder that you have like shared with me, but that does not mean that I have to X, Y, and Z. And this is how you're rubbing up against me, and I can't do that. Like having solid boundaries will help too. And boundaries, like I say all the time, y'all, I think boundaries can be bridges, not fences, but it's only when people are willing to listen to that. You might have to take matters into your own hand. Maybe you have to distance yourself and some connections, who knows? But that is my spin on that today. Y'all, oh my God, it's a Mercury retrograde too. So please bear with me. Auntie trying real bad, real bad. So I hope that was a sufficient answer. It's okay if it wasn't, but I hope it was. Next segment is What's Your Anthem? And this is where we share a song or a piece of media that is keeping us going these days. And in honor of Michael B. Jordan and Ryan Coogler winning their Oscars, I'm going to say that my piece of media today is going to be Sinners. Sinners is such an amazing movie. That movie, just like, especially the scene where everybody's dancing. I really, really love that scene because, like, I really do believe, like, an ancestral connection and how that lives through us, like, both the past, present, and future merge to meet us here. Shouts out to Beyonce. But, like, yeah, I really love the entirety of that movie and how reflective it is of just like experiencing society that is so othering and how there are vultures that come around into our culture, Jack Harlow. And it's important for us to gatekeep and protect each other and ourselves, how there is solidarity, but like we do have to look out and protect each other, period. And lastly, the last segment is going to be the toolkit, and this is where I share and guests that come on, share things to expand our mental health toolkits. And I'm going to just say the rain technique. If you can look into the rain technique, which is a method of processing emotions, use that skill. It's a good skill to have. I used to teach it to kids when I worked in foster care. Like, it is a good skill to have, teaching yourself how to regulate your emotions. When I tell you it is not something that is innate, you do not learn, you don't like wake up knowing how to regulate your emotions. It's something that you have to learn. Do not be afraid to look up skills and techniques to do so. I think that the rain technique is like one of the best tried and true methods of doing it for me. But yeah, that is it for me today. If you got through this during this retrograde, I love you down. Please take care of yourselves. Don't forget to leave a comment, go like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, leave a review, all the things. Love y'all down. Over and out.